In this video, I'm going to give a brief overview of what the overall API structure will look like for our program. So just to remind you, this is how the overall architecture looks like. The microservices based architecture, which has 4 different microservices. We have this front end, which is the JavaScript game, and 2 backends, which have their own specific jobs. The high score backend microservice, its job is to store the high score, and the game engine microservice, its job is to decide what size should we show to the user based on his performance. And the BFF microservice acts as a middleman between front end and the back end services. So what's going to be the API of the services? So API stands for Application Program Interface, which basically defines how the communication in between the applications, in between the uh, microservices will look like. So when it comes to the high score microservice, what sort of functionality do we expect? We should be able to set the high score, and we should be able to get the high score when we need, just to show it in the front end. So I can define APIs like this: get high score and set high score. These two will be eventually two functions in high score, which can be called by BFF whenever front end requests to either get the high score or to set the high score. Similarly, for game engine, which will be in a folder called M game engine, um, what sort of functionalities do we expect? It should know what the recent scores are, so that based on that it can decide whether the user is performing well or not. So that should be a function called set score, and through that we can set the current scores of the user. And there will be another function called get size. So this get size will check the recent scores, and based on that it will give a size. So these 4 are the APIs. So these 2 are the APIs for high score, and these 2, get size and set score, are APIs for the game engine microservice. So basically it boils down to communication between a client and a server. So a client requests some data by using the API, and the server responses with some data. So in this case, this high score microservice is a server for the BFF, which acts like a client. Similarly, game engine microservice can act as a server, and BFF can act as a client. So this is the overall overview for the API structure of our system, and later on I will explain how exactly we build these API servers on top of gRPC, and how exactly we will be going to communicate among them.